Have you ever noticed how easily we live as if tomorrow is guaranteed? As if time will never run out, no matter what we do. That illusion is comforting, but it's also dangerous, because it's the fuel behind one of the most destructive habits we all share: procrastination. In this video, we're not talking about hacks or quick tricks to get more done. We're going deeper. You're going to see how our refusal to face the truth that time is finite quietly shapes the way we waste our lives. Through this explanation, you'll understand why procrastination isn't just laziness or lack of discipline. It's something far more costly: the denial of death. And once you see that clearly, you'll never look at time the same way again. My name is Glitch, and welcome to Glitch Cult, where we pull apart the illusions you live in, so you can finally understand what's real. Let's start with a simple observation. Most of us live as if we'll live forever. You've probably felt it yourself, pushing things off until tomorrow, as though tomorrow is some guarantee written into the laws of nature. We make plans for next month, next year, even the next decade, without pausing to realize that none of those days are promised. That quiet assumption that you'll always have more time is the perfect fuel for procrastination. Now here's where it gets interesting. The idea of keeping death in mind isn't new. The ancient Stoics had a phrase for it: memento mori, remember you must die. They didn't do this to be dark or depressing. They did it to stay grounded, to keep life in perspective. When you're constantly reminded that the clock is ticking, every moment suddenly feels sharper, more valuable. That awareness made them braver in their choices and clearer about what mattered. You might think, okay, but why should I dwell on mortality? Isn't that just morbid? It's not about dwelling, it's about clarity. Think about it. If time was infinite, would anything really matter? Deadlines, goals, dreams, they'd all lose their meaning. The fact that time runs out is what gives life its weight. Procrastination thrives on the illusion of endless tomorrows. Break that illusion, and you break procrastination's hold. Here's a thought experiment. Imagine your life as a jar filled with marbles. Each marble represents one day. Every morning, you remove a marble. At first, the jar looks full, so losing one doesn't bother you. But as it empties, each marble feels heavier in your hand. That's what mortality awareness does. It forces you to see each day as finite, not replaceable. Suddenly, wasting a marble on something meaningless feels costly. The problem is, most people never look at their jar. They live in denial, treating time like an unlimited supply. That's why you'll hear people say things like, "I'll start when I'm ready," or "I'll do it next year." They don't see that the jar is already half empty, sometimes more. And once those marbles are gone, they're gone forever. Here's where the shift happens. The moment you let mortality into your awareness, procrastination feels less like laziness and more like self-betrayal. You realize that putting things off isn't harmless. It's trading away pieces of a life you'll never get back. That sting, that discomfort is powerful. It's not meant to paralyze you. It's meant to wake you up. When you see that clearly, the excuses lose their weight. You stop asking, "Do I feel like doing this today?" and start asking, "If I don't do this today, will I regret it when my jar is empty?" That single shift in framing changes everything. So this is where we begin, with the mindset that time is not endless. Every single one of us runs out of time eventually. And that's not a depressing fact. It's the most liberating one. Because once you see it, you stop living on autopilot. You start treating each day like the rare, non-renewable resource it really is. Now that we've shifted into the mindset that time is finite, let's make it even more real. Because here's the problem. The human brain doesn't respond well to abstract numbers like years. Tell someone they've got 50 years left to live, and it feels distant, almost unreal. But translate those years into days or weeks, and suddenly it hits differently. Let's do the math. If you're 25 years old and live to 80, that's about 55 years left. In years, it sounds like a lot, but in days, that's only around 20,000. And every morning you wake up, one of those days disappears forever. Why does this framing work? Because our brains are wired to respond to scarcity. When something feels infinite, we treat it carelessly. But when we see it shrinking, every unit suddenly matters. Remember that jar of marbles from earlier? Now imagine you're holding the jar again, but it's no longer full. There are only a few marbles left, rattling at the bottom. Every marble you remove now carries meaning because you can see the empty space growing. That's how mortality awareness evolves. At first it's abstract, but as the jar empties, it becomes personal. Each day stops being just another day and starts feeling like a choice you can't undo. That's why some people keep countdown calendars or apps that show how many weeks they've lived and how many might be left. At first, the numbers feel uncomfortable, but after a while, they stop being a threat and start becoming a compass. Every time you see the total drop, you're reminded that the clock is moving whether you act or not. And that reminder alone can break procrastination's spell faster than any motivational slogan ever could. Here's the part that really matters. When you see time as a countdown, it's no longer easy to justify delays. Wasting a day isn't just harmless fun anymore. It's a subtraction from the only total you'll ever get. That realization hurts, and it should, because it forces you to treat each day with the weight it deserves. Now, you might wonder, doesn't this make life stressful? Actually not. Stress comes from pretending you have infinite time, because then you waste it and feel guilty later. Seeing time as a countdown is clarifying. It cuts through the noise and forces you to ask, is this how I want to spend one of my marbles? That's the power of reframing. As long as time feels endless, procrastination thrives. But once you see it as a shrinking supply, procrastination collapses. The illusion is gone. And what's left is urgency. Not the panic kind, but the kind that clears your vision and reminds you of what's worth doing. So far, we've seen how understanding that we are mortal shatters the illusion of having infinite time. You can think about life as something quietly slipping away in a way that you barely notice. But this awareness by itself isn't enough. You can know that time is slipping. You can even feel the countdown in the back of your mind. But nothing changes until that awareness translates into choices. The truth is simple. When time is limited, prioritizing something meaningful stops being something optional. It's not a motivational way to think. It's the only logical response to life. Every decision you make is a trade. You spend a slice of your finite life on one thing, which means you lose the chance to spend it on something else. That's the part most people forget. A delay isn't just a pause. It's an exchange. You give away hours or days in return for something that may not even matter once it's over. This is where death-driven prioritization comes in. When you accept that your time is limited, you also start to see that your choices can't all matter equally. Some of them transforms your life for good, such as shaping your work, your relationships, your future. Others fade almost as soon as they're made. And the moment you notice that difference, procrastination begins to look less like a harmless habit and more like a dangerous trade. Because why would anyone gamble with the most limited resource they'll ever have? Delay, in this light, isn't harmless. It carries a quiet permanence. The conversation you put off, the project you never begin, the risk you avoid, they don't just sit there waiting for you. They vanish. With limited time, erasure becomes the default. If you don't choose, the choice is still made, and it's made against you. When seen through this lens, procrastination reveals its cost. It doesn't just waste the valuable time of your life. It rewrites the shape of your life as well. The path you once wanted to take quietly closes. The opportunities that matter to you expires. And one day, you look back and realize that procrastination didn't just steal time, it stole versions of yourself that you never became. That's why death-driven prioritization matters. It's meant to make you think about your life honestly. It strips away the illusion that you can always wait, and it forces you to confront the weight of each choice you make. Without this realization, you give your days away to convenience. But with this realization, you understand that every action you take or avoid becomes part of your legacy. Even if the world forgets, you won't. That's what makes a death-driven perspective so powerful. It doesn't demand more from you. It simply shows you the cost of doing nothing. Every moment you hesitate is a moment lost forever. And once you see that clearly, you realize that the most dangerous choice you can make is not choosing at all. So far, we've gone from awareness to action. First, seeing time as finite, then using mortality as a filter to cut through procrastination. But there's still a paradox left to face. At first glance, focusing on death sounds like it would make life more stressful. You'd think it would create panic, as if every day has to be crammed with productivity or you're failing. But that's not what happens. The opposite is true. When you finally accept that your time is finite, life doesn't get heavier. It gets lighter. Mortality brings urgency. But inside that urgency is a strange sense of peace. Why? Because when you stop pretending you have unlimited time, you stop wasting energy on the things that don't matter. Think about how much of modern stress comes from the small stuff. The petty conflicts, the minor inconveniences, the endless worry about other people's opinions. Without a mortality lens, those things swell up and take over your headspace. But when you remind yourself that you're carrying only so many marbles in your jar, those small things shrink instantly. A harsh email, an awkward conversation, a plan that didn't work out, none of it feels worth trading a day of your life for. This clarity also erases a hidden source of procrastination: indecision. How often do people get stuck endlessly weighing options, afraid to make the wrong move? But when you see life as a countdown, the cost of not choosing becomes greater than the risk of choosing wrong. You stop paralyzing yourself and start moving forward, because doing something with limited time is always better than doing nothing at all. And here's the deeper piece. Mortality awareness shows you that perfection was never the goal. You don't need to live every day flawlessly. You just need to live it consciously. That shift removes pressure instead of adding it. Suddenly, you're free to focus on the things that bring meaning instead of chasing approval or wasting time on trivialities. It's not about squeezing more into every day. It's about stripping away what doesn't matter so the important things can rise to the surface. You feel urgency not to do more, but to be clear. That's where the paradox lies. Urgency gives you calm. It creates a quiet confidence that you're spending your finite time in ways you won't regret when the jar is empty. So, what does all this mean for procrastination? It means procrastination is more than just a bad habit. It's a refusal to face mortality. It's pretending the jar is endless when it isn't. Once you see through that illusion, procrastination loses its power. Because how can you justify wasting time when you know, with absolute certainty, that you don't have an infinite supply? And here's the final truth. Thinking about death doesn't make life darker. It makes life brighter. It pushes you to use your time instead of letting it slip away. It's not morbid, it's liberating. Mortality isn't an enemy. It's the sharpest tool you have against delay. So the question is simple. Now that you've seen your life as a countdown, how will you spend the marbles left in your jar?